The Black Brief is going to be a very brief, but definitely Black way that we're going to talk about politics, pop culture, and problems of the day. And yes, there's many.
Whip it, whip it, work, 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 work.
What's up, everyone? This is Jaylen Black, and thanks for tuning in to The Black Brief, Episode 1, the pilot. The Black Brief is really a passion project that I started in 2020 when I was working on campaigns in Georgia, and I realized people just did not know what was going on. So I went to my Instagram story and said, would it be helpful if I started making videos about what's going on in the world? And it got overwhelming comments and likes. Yes, please do this. So the Black Brief is really something I do to be informative. And it's also something I'm enjoying. So I just thank you so much for tuning in. The Black Brief is going to be a very brief, but definitely Black way that we're going to talk about politics, pop culture, and problems of the day. And yes, there's many. So tune in and let's get it started. So on this first episode, we're going to talk about a number of things, but I want to make this really just the prelude of what we will be expecting the next couple months of our lives. But before I get too far, I want to say a little disclaimer that no party, no candidate, no person, no organization is paying me to do these videos. I do not represent any organizations when I'm giving my personal opinion on the Black Brief. And I also don't represent any organizations or affiliations of that matter when I'm giving my personal views. So just want to put that out there. Don't come for me. This is what Jaylen Black thinks. But I do want to be clear that I am not trying to persuade anybody to do certain things. I like to say that disclaimer because this is not going to be some you should vote Democrat podcast. This is not going to be a you should vote Republican, you should vote third party. I'm going to tell you what's going on in an informative, factual way. I'll give you my opinion, and then you can make the best opinion for yourself. And I think that is just a good cadence that we need to have with these episodes. And then secondly, my favorite part is that these will be brief because I understand how my attention span works, and it might be how your attention span works as well. Sometimes staying focused for too long, it gets hard, and definitely harder post-pandemic, if we're say post-pandemic, because COVID is definitely still running it up. But it can be hard to focus on certain things. So I want to bring you these episodes in really less than 20 minutes. These episodes, you can also expect some special guests. So excited. And just more of the fun. And the number one thing that I want to get across with the Black Brief is that I want you to interact with this podcast. Comment. Tell me what you think. What do you want to hear about? I love when people go to the Black Brief on Instagram and just say, hey, can you talk about this? Or I saw this thread. I saw this post. What does this mean? I will definitely do my research. And I will give you the best point of view on what's going on to save you time, because I understand sometimes reading pages of things, it just doesn't make sense. So let's start off with politics. Now we have the ticket set for the presidential election. On one side, we have Donald Trump and JD Vance. JD Vance, for some people who don't know him, he is a senator of the United States. And he comes from an Ivy League law background, and he works in venture capital. And Donald Trump, he is no stranger to American politics. You know, hate him or love him, Donald Trump is probably one of the most influential people of the past decade, just because of what he has done in American politics. Good and bad. A lot of bad, though. But he's influential. People know who Donald Trump is. So that is the ticket on the Republican side. And then on the Democrat side, you have Kamala Harris. Yes, it is Kamala, not Kamala, blah, 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 because what some Republicans are doing is they're intentionally saying her name incorrectly, and that's racist. That's racist. So it's Kamala Harris, and she's running with Tim Walz, who is the governor of Minnesota. This is so ironic because who knew Minnesota would cross worlds with like the big political world like this? It is not a battleground state. And when I say battleground, you have a number of states that could go either way for either the Republican or Democrat. So you'll see a lot of resources invested in those states. Minnesota is not one of those, but he's a very popular governor who has implemented some popular policies in Minnesota. So that's the Democrat ticket. And then you have your independents like RFK or Robert Kennedy, and a couple more that I can't even list because they are third party. But definitely do your research. That is what the 2024 election cycle is going to look like. So for the next couple of months, and it's really around the corner, you will see everybody talking about the top of the ticket. My favorite thing to talk about, though, on the Black Brief is, yes, we understand these four names, or at least two of the four, or at least one of the four. But what does it mean for everything else going down the ballot? There's other important races going on. The control of the House of Representatives is also on the line. The control of the United States Senate is also on the line. And then on top of that, you have to think about the balance of the Supreme Court, which is a huge thing. Because what I want to get across is like, this is politics, but why does it matter? My favorite thing about being a professional communicator is knowing how to talk about things in ways that my 4-year-old cousin could understand, a 40-year-old could understand, a 75-year-old could understand. Somebody can understand it if they're in the east side of Atlanta, Zone 6. Shout out to y'all. Shout out to us. But they can also understand it if they are, corporate big shots working at Google. So because it's all impacting us, the number one thing I usually hear is, I don't do politics. And I'll say, listen, you might not do politics, but politics is doing you. Because whether you vote or not, your tax dollars are being decided on by the government. Whether you vote or not, issues like reproductive justice, reproductive access, actually being able to have an abortion, believe it or not, politicians are currently making those decisions. There are so many things that we can relate our everyday life to what's going on. Yes, I go into the grocery store and literally want to cry because the prices skyrocketed. That has everything to do with what's going on in our economy and politics, government. These things are intersectional. So it's not about, oh, I love this. Oh, I hate this. It's about, these are things that are impacting our lives, period. Full stop. That's it. And that is why I'm so passionate about breaking them down. So we'll talk a lot about Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, JD Vance, Tim Walz. But I just want to kind of level set. That's where the ticket is. This is pretty unique. And I said this this wasn't in a podcast episode, but I did go live on the Black Brief Instagram. Again, that's why you should be following, follow, is the fact that Joe Biden, who was the previous nominee on the Democratic side, stepped aside in this race, and Kamala Harris took control with nearly 100 days left to go in election. It's just completely unprecedented. It's never happened before in this short period of time. So you're seeing very unique, complete 180 trends of like what's going on in politics. I can say, just zooming out as someone that doesn't work for any of these campaigns and someone that is not getting paid to say these things, I have seen one of the most impressive rollouts of the Kamala Harris and Tim Walz ticket than I have ever seen before. And for those of you who might be new to me or to the Black Brief, I have worked on multiple election cycles in our country, done a lot of work in Georgia, done work on Capitol Hill in DC. So I get to see a lot of politics up close and personal. I get to walk around with people like Senator Warnock and Stacey Abrams. It's definitely, I've learned a lot in this time. And one thing for sure is when I like to the way I think about politicians and things like that, I think it was actually best said by Stacey Abrams or Leader Abrams. She said, voting isn't magic, it's medicine. You have to keep taking it to get closer and closer and to feel better about your outcomes. And I think the number one problem I see with politics these days is people are falling too in love with candidates. Listen, regardless of if you hate or love someone, a politician will never be somebody I just stand because they're not meant to be. They're meant to represent you. This is a representative government for that reason. They're not meant to be people that you idolize. And that's why I think people are kind of losing it. Oh, I don't like her. She's just not even my favorite. Okay, but at the end of the day, when we vote this fall, these are going to be the two tickets, and you're going to have to decide one way or the other and then vote down the ballot. So that's just what it is. And I'll talk a little bit more in later episodes about how I really feel about the two-party system. Disclaimer, I don't like it. I understand. Having two options is crazy. I can barely have two options of like thinking about what shoe I want to wear in the morning. Like, it is two options is just not enough. Like, I'm in restaurants literally wanting to sample everything because two is never enough. I just want to try different things. That's why I love to go out to eat with people who let me just sample things that they're getting, that I'm getting. It works out. So the two-party system is not set up to be very rambunctious with options, and that's a problem. But that's not a problem that we're going to fix this election cycle. So I am going to focus on what we do know, and what we do know is that we have these two tickets set and the implications that come with that. More on the why it matters. I just want to be very clear on this podcast that it is more than just the president. Let me tell you, whoever leads in America is the leader of the free world. America is a dominant country in the global world. So countries from all around the world are paying attention to what's going on right now because they know the effects that that has on the market, the effects it has on business, the effects it has on capitalism, the effects it has on a slew of other issues. So again, zoom out. They're just the people. Administrations are very important. The Biden and Harris administration is one of the most diverse administrations that we've ever had in our country. And then arguably, they've actually been one of the most effective administrations in terms of what they got done in a little less than 4 years. So these are things we're going to be talking about too. Who are their cabinet picks? What are they looking at in terms of the Supreme Court? It is very, very likely that the next president of the United States will be picking the next two Supreme Court justices. People are getting older. They are going to have to turn over those seats. Supreme Court seats are lifetime appointments, which I also disagree with, but that's just the law. I don't make them, I follow them. So they're lifetime appointments. So when justices get old, they might get sick, things like that. People are already thinking about those things. The president appoints Supreme Court justice. That's huge. So you might have been like, oh my God, what happened in June? Let me tell you, we'll have an episode for that. The Supreme Court ruled on some of the most consequential things this June. And I need people to pay attention to how this is affecting our lives even more directly sometimes than a president will. So you see how these things are all kind of jumbled up into things that matter to you. And that's why we're going to talk about them. Next, I want to talk about problems of the day. And gosh, I was picking out how I wanted to start episode 1 of the pilot. And let's talk about with the number one problem, I would say, in our society. Racism. American racism at that, because that is a different and deeper level of racism. Simultaneously, when we had Kamala Harris be announced as the person that was endorsed by Joe Biden to lead and to run as the presidential candidate, we also had Sonya Massey, who was murdered in her kitchen by the hands of police. And for many of you that might be watching this and listening to this, it is the same with me, that the parallel of being a Black woman in this country where we have to simultaneously cheer for Kamala Harris, but also see our own be shot and killed in her kitchen, holding a pot of water, a hot pot of water. It's hard to frankly even talk about, like, just the parallels of that, right? Like, to be a Black woman in America is to wear so many hats. It's like, we're encouraged. Yes, we could have the first Black woman to ever be president of the United States. First woman, but definitely Black woman to be president of the United States. That is exciting for young people. But to still understand, where did we even go from 2020? All these companies posting Black squares, having a one-time donation to Black organizations and things like that. Where are you now? Because we're still getting killed. And the last time I checked, there still hasn't been significant policing reform accomplished in this country. So it doesn't change that. And again, voting is medicine and not magic, but also we can't just vote and change our problems. I'm aware of that. Like, before I even hopped into the political world, I started off in advocacy. I still do advocate. I advocate every day because I'm a person of people. I care about people. I care about our livelihoods. And the fact that we are still being killed on camera, imagine the things that aren't caught on camera. We're being killed on camera and people are still justifying why. So Sonya Massey, may her soul rest in peace, because I still can't fully fathom her death and seeing it. And it is just really hard and it doesn't get easier. So we have problems even bigger than our electoral system. So we will definitely be talking about those as well. And lastly, pop culture. Oh my gosh. I love talking about many things pop culture related, but can we please talk about the Olympics for a sec? Like, this is my patriotic hat. Very patriotic during the Olympics. I had a great time. Can we talk about all the women who won gold medals? America had about 40 gold medals, tied with China at the end of the Olympics. 26 of those came from women. It's almost as if they need to invest more in women's sports. I don't know. But it's also, what are the men doing? Come on. So the Olympics was very exciting. I mean, Simone Biles is that girl. Like, there's no one touching her. And Jordan Childs, let's be clear, we're going to get that bronze medal back, Romania, because the reason why it was even taken from her for the first place makes no sense. So, and then LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, all on one team playing basketball, beating the world. Good night. Yes, Steph Curry did that. He really put up 4 3-pointers at the end of a closeout gold medal game. It's just America. Like, they not like us over there. Like, basketball is our sport. And then track, Quincy Hall. Man, if you ever were to listen to this podcast, please know you've inspired me and my homegirls and all my friends, because the way he came back to take that gold, that's grit. And that's Black American grit too, to understand that it doesn't matter where you are, adversity, you will beat it. So I felt really inspired, like, from the Olympics, and just really proud. And also the Paralympics are starting now. So don't just think that the Olympics is over. You should still watch the Paralympics, but just overall inspiration coming out of the Olympics. And it was really nice to see all the Black Americans doing our thing as we do. But let's be clear, America, don't only want or love Black people when it's time to get a gold medal. Love us for who we are. Love our culture. Love us. Love our hair. Love the way we speak. Love the way we do our work. Love us. Like, it's simple. We're not just tools in this country to win gold medals, or in this case, become potentially the next president of the United States. You should love Black people all the time. But would you look at the time? Speaking of Black and brief, it's time for us to close out for today. So thank you so much for joining the Black Brief. And I hope you like and subscribe. You will see this episode on your favorite place to stream podcasts, on YouTube, on Instagram. So I hope you tune in, because we have a lot to talk about. See you next time.